Lots been happening since I made one of these installments. Fell off the wagon a little bit in terms of getting these videos done, but I'm gonna get back on it. You'll have some more content from me more regularly. But a lot of very cool stuff has been happening. Was on the road a little bit, which is the first time that I've been out traveling, playing concerts since March of 2020. And that was a huge thing. It's a great feeling to finally be back in front of audiences, working with other musicians, not confined, not restricted, not mandated to do anything, but instead to do what we've always done, right? Which is live our lives. And as musicians, that means you have to get out and you have to play. And I've had local stuff, you know, but I hadn't had any road work, you know, since March 2020. So that was a great thing, wonderful thing. And that was actually a couple of different artists, a vocalist here in town. Her name is Shakila, and she's a Persian vocalist and really great singer, interesting writer. She and her husband kind of run the band together, and I got to know them over the past few years. The last time playing with them was January of 2020. And we had one show together recently in State College, Pennsylvania, which is on the campus of Penn State University. And it was a lot of fun to be with them and playing music with them. But if you've been following the news recently and seeing all the developments on that end, we changed our concert offering a little bit. We changed the set list up a bit. We had some more kind of rock and party tunes that we were going to play, but in light of what was happening, we decided to change some of those songs out and go to more introspective songs. And I think that we made quite a powerful statement. It was fun to play with them, of course. There was another artist I was touring with. Her name is Dalal Abu Amne, and she is a Palestinian singer. And I've known her for quite some time. I've played with her in the past, both here and over in the Middle East with another orchestra that I worked with. But this was her group, her music, and I was contracted along with a number of other musicians to be a part of this tour. 4 different dates: San Francisco, Los Angeles, Houston, and Newark, New Jersey. Or I should say Union, New Jersey, technically speaking. And also a lot of fun to play. Very different music, very different format. A lot of just really incredible musicians in the band, and that's always makes it a lot of fun to play with great players. And had a chance to, you know, kind of renew some of my friendships with some of these musicians who I've known for many years, and simultaneously make new friendships. And it's just such an overwhelmingly positive feeling to get out and actually do what we set out to do. One other thing I wanted to talk about today a little bit was a project that I was approached by this particular artist, and this was years ago. All right. Her name is Diamanda Galas. And I hope that you have heard of her, because she's an extremely important artist. It is extremely important you understand her body of work, where she's coming from, and who she seeks to champion and give her voice to the voiceless. And this record just came out. This is called Broken Gargoyles. It is 2 compositions on the entire record, and I was given a really great opportunity to participate in this project and play and have some of my performance be contributed to the final project, or the final product. So how this came about is a real long-term set of circumstances. In 1999, I moved to California. And I started a master's degree at CalArts, California Institute of the Arts. I'd already known of Diamanda's work. My brother and sister-in-law had introduced me to some of her music. I had bought one of her records I thought was really cool. There was a book that she had put out. I got that as well. It had a lot of her libretto and lyric content for a lot of her work, but also kind of essays describing why she went about some of her pieces. And it turned out she was coming to Los Angeles to perform on tour to support her latest record, which was at the time called Malediction and Prayer. And this was a solo piano and voice record, just her. And it's still one of my favorite records of hers. Okay. At the time, the Knitting Factory was still open in Los Angeles. They had, this was like one of their satellite locations in Hollywood. And I've played there a bunch of times. I've seen a number of shows there over the years, and eventually it did close, but this was the first time in 1999 that I had gone to see a show there, and I went by myself. She was playing 2 nights in a row, and I think it was like a Monday and a Tuesday night at the Knitting Factory. I went on Monday night and was just utterly blown away, totally blown away. It was more than what I had thought to expect. It was more than what the record showed, which is always amazing. And so I went to school the next day at CalArts, and I found a vocal friend of mine. Her name is Nina Eidstein. And I said, Nina, you've got to go see this show tonight. I saw it last night. She's going to do the same show tonight. You've got to go see it. She was there to get her master's degree in vocal performance. And I didn't really follow up with her if she actually went and saw that show. And then, of course, we graduated. Years go by. Many years went by. And it was about 2000. I want to say this was 2016. It could have been 2015. I don't know exactly when, but it was somewhere in there. I was performing as part of the LA Phil's Minimalist Jukebox event. And I think this was an annual event for a few years at least, pre 2020, let's say. And a group of musicians were asked to play Terry Riley's In C at the Hammer Museum, which is over on the campus of UCLA. And I believe the museum is affiliated with the university, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it is. And of course, Terry Riley's In C is sort of one of the seminal early works of what we have now called minimalist music, right? And, it's fun, it's energetic, it's rhythmic, it's quasi-improvisational. You can take breaks. It kind of starts to break down what the concert format should look and feel like, which is interesting in its own way, and we played in the open air atrium of the museum, right? Kind of in the center courtyard area. And my friend Nina came, and it was the first time I'd seen her since we graduated in 2001 from CalArts. And, we take a break from the performance, and, I went and saw her, and of course it's lots of good feelings and good memories. And she was there with her son, and we started to chit chat a little bit. And she said, would you be willing maybe to teach my son some drum lessons? So we started this exchange where Nina, who was now a professor at UCLA in their vocal department, agreed to teach me some voice lessons if I would give her son Nico drum lessons. And that was a great exchange. It was a lot of fun. Nico was a wonderful, wonderful young man to work with. And of course, to study under Nina was a great treat for me. And then I received an email from her a couple weeks later. And she said, I want to share something with you and invite you to come and see Diamanda Galas give a talk at UCLA. And I really want you to be there because in a roundabout way, you helped introduce Diamanda's work to me, and I really want to be there with you to see her come give this talk. And I said, that sounds awesome. And I agreed to go. I arrived just a little late. just a little late. And as I got there, I walk into Schoenberg Hall and I take my seat kind of near the back of the auditorium a little bit, and Nina was already up on stage introducing Diamanda, introducing the event that we were there to witness, and then to introduce the artist. And the first thing that Nina says is, welcome everybody. There is one person who's responsible for bringing all of this together, and that's TJ Troy. Because TJ was the person who came and told me in 1999 to go see Diamanda Galas perform at the Knitting Factory in Hollywood, and I didn't go. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, she's got a pretty good memory of all of this. And then she goes on to explain that she had been basically chasing the ghost of Diamanda Galas all over the world in her own studies and her own pursuit of the voice as an instrument, what it's capable of, and what its limitations are, and how to push against those things, where sound production for the voice actually comes from. As Nina was going through her own research on this, every time she would encounter one specialist, the discussion would always turn to Diamanda Galas, and the specialist would just say, oh, she was just here a week ago. I was giving her lessons. Or she came and gave a talk a month ago and she and I had dinner together. So everywhere Nina went, Diamanda was there just previously. So it was kind of this interesting dynamic that began to develop. Well, finally Nina tracked down Diamanda, and they set up an opportunity for Diamanda to come to the UCLA campus to do some recording and some research there, and in exchange give this lecture. So that was pretty cool. And I have my book in my pocket. I brought my book and I thought maybe I can meet Diamanda, maybe I could be introduced and I could get her autograph. That'd be cool. And so after the show, I walked back into the lobby. People from all over the country had come to see Diamanda talk. She rarely performs in the United States anymore. There's not a lot of budget for her and for what she does. Most of her performance at this point in her career was in Europe. And so people came from all over the place, all across the country, just to hear her talk. She didn't perform anything. She just spoke. And I went to the lobby afterwards and I see Nina, and she waves me over. She's like, did you get a chance to meet Diamanda? And I said, no. She's like, okay, come on. And she grabs me and we kind of run down the hall, and already at the far end of one of the adjacent hallways leading away, Diamanda was walking with, one of her handlers, if you will. And we ran and we caught up to her, and Nina's like, Diamanda, hold on for a moment. I want you to meet my friend TJ. This is the percussionist I was telling you about. Diamanda whirls around and looks at me. She's like, a percussionist? I need a percussionist right now. And I looked at her and I said, I can do anything that you need me to do. And she, I saw her just sort of react to this physically. She kind of stood very tall and was just sort of looking at me as though she was encountering an adversary and was just trying to size me up for a moment. And then she said, well, fantastic. Nice to meet you. We chit-chatted for just a moment. And then the handler that was with her said, Diamanda, we need to get you back over to the green room. Otherwise, people are going to start to follow us. And so Nina had one other thing to ask Diamanda about, and then they left. And I reached into my pocket. I was like, Nina, I don't know if this is appropriate. Can I give this to you? And can you ask Diamanda to sign this? And I'll catch up with you the next time that Nico and I have a lesson. She said, no problem. I got home that night and I just thought, what a great day, what a nice experience. And I sat down at my computer to write a thank you note to Nina for inviting me to see such an interesting talk. And as I'm composing this thank you note, an email arrives in my inbox from Nina. And she says, I've got your book signed. I'll mail it to you. By the way, Diamanda was serious that she needs a percussionist, and she does want to talk to you. Here's her email. I suggest that you reach out to her. And I did. And we ended up going out to dinner the next night. We met at her hotel. There was a nice restaurant there in the lobby, and we ate and we talked for several hours. And it kind of turns out that we were kind of kindred spirits on a lot of things. And from an artistic standpoint, even though her career was in a much different place than mine was, there was significant overlap of the values that we shared, these artistic values of what it means to be a musician, how to back that statement up when you say this is what I do, and why it's important to have something there to back up what you're saying. And that can be, well, a body of work, hopefully, and a work ethic that surrounds it. And she certainly has both. And we just kind of clicked from a personality standpoint. But this took then several years then for the project itself to finally materialize. And, we would talk on the phone, I don't know, once a year, once every 6 months or something like this, exchange an email here and there. If I made a recording, I'd send her something. If she had something interesting to share with me, she would send it. But we would have very interesting conversations periodically that would go on for hours. And it's just not about music exclusively. It's about everything. And she ended up becoming just a very, very cool and wonderful friend. And then in 2020, she reached out to me and said, I'm working on this now. The music has been composed, and now I need your contributions to things. So I went and did a day of test recordings up at LA Percussion Rentals. My friend Dan Savell, I was already there working with another ensemble and doing some recording up there. So he was willing to give me like an extra 20 or 30 minutes to just sort of wander around and say, Diamanda, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And I would record for her little video snippets of the different sounds and possibilities based on our conversations. We could try this idea or this idea or this, and I gave her maybe 10 or 12 different ideas. And then we talked after that, after she reviewed that material, and she sort of singled out which were the ones that she wanted me to focus on. And then I booked a day with Dan and went up and recorded the whole thing. All these different parts. Some of them were multi-tracked layers. Some of them were just solo improvisations. Some of them were more structured than others, but I ended up sending her, I can't tell you how many files. And then her sound designer, Daniel Newman, who is fantastic, worked with Diamanda to then manipulate all those sounds and colors and mix them into the landscape that she was creating for Broken Gargoyles, which is this record. These things take time, but it's interesting to see a project where the seeds were planted literally 23 years ago in the fall of 1999. And the planting of the seeds, you got to understand, it was me encountering this artist in a live setting and then talking about it with my other musician friends. And then from there, the dominoes just continued to fall, but on separate tracks until at a certain point, they intersected again. And that's where we became friends. It's pretty cool. And I can't tell you how many times that this has happened. Now, I started out today talking about some touring. The seeds for that tour were planted years ago as well. Especially with Dalal, those seeds were planted in the 2000s, 2005, 2006, 2007. That's when I worked with her last. Pretty cool. And I think it was 2012, I think, was when I worked with her last. But 2009, 2007, I think, was the first time that I had worked with her. And then, again in 2012, and then 2022, having more dates with her here in the US. Fingers crossed that there's more of that coming in the future. But this is what I've been up to. Planting seeds. And then you wait for those seeds, often for decades, to come into fruition. And that is what this is about. That's stunning to me. It's stunning. But it's also something that I've come to trust. And so, for all that's happened over the past 2.5 years, and I'm sure the more of these garage talks that I put together to share with you guys, we'll talk more and more about what's been happening in the last 2.5 years. But for the fears that I certainly had that music may never come back, have proven to be unfounded. And I'm glad that I was wrong. So glad. And that finally, after a long time, life is getting back to normal. And thank God that I planted those seeds. And there's other seeds that I've been planting along the way, and even more recent seeds that have been planted. And if it takes 20 years for some of those fruits to blossom, no problem. Because it's all part of the larger tapestry. And I think it's part of why I do what I do. So go out and plant seeds, and then nurture them. Keep practicing, keep working, keep writing, and maybe one of those seeds will come to fruition.